99, 200. Hey there, I'm Daniel Dauphin.
I am sorry if you have never heard of me. When I started doing clinics about 14 years ago, I was not aware that you had to have like a Manhattan marketing firm to run all of this stuff and social media and all of these various things so that people would have some clue of who you were. I just found this out last week. I apologize for being late to the party on that. If I were an ice cream flavor, it would be a brown butter bourbon pecan. So why would you listen to me? Common sense. Common sense. Common sense? If you're interested in my pedigree with horses, I've now been a professional horseman for a little over 30 years. I started off cleaning stalls at a halter horse born. I used to break race horses for the track. I've been in mounted patrols, and most of my career was in the cutting horse business. I spent 6 years apprenticing under other cutting horse trainers. I've ridden the six-figure babies and done all of that stuff. I've had a hand in training horses that have won well over $1 million, and that's everything from racing to barrel racing to cutting horse futurity horses and aged event horses, rein cow horse reining, kind of the gambit of the Western stuff, even roping and those sorts of things. I have spent a good bit of time working with English riders as well, and like I say, I used to ride race horses in English tack myself. I'm not going to make you feel ashamed. I'm not going to make you feel defensive. I'm not going to speak to you in a condescending way whatsoever. That means to talk down to people like they're stupid. I am going to be sarcastic. We are going to have some clever wordplay. There's going to be some jokes thrown in there. They are meant to keep you happy and smiling and where you can think. I do have a college degree, a couple years in engineering, graduated with a degree in pre-veterinary medicine, BS in animal science, and a minor in chemistry. I do have the academic chops. I do actually read a lot of research in the behavioral sciences and in my bit stuff and all of that. So while I kind of have this country boy can survive, I can skin a buck and run a trot line vibe going, I actually do know what the hell I'm talking about on the science end of this stuff too. So in all honesty, training horses, being good with horses, that is a skill set that I possess. But being able to convey that, to teach it to you, to communicate with you, to work with your emotions and all of those things, it's an entirely different skill set. And not always do you have people that are great with horses that are also great with people. And I'm okay. As far as the format, what we've been doing for the last couple of years, and it really has worked out pretty well. I like this. We do 2 or 3 days of clinics, and those are broken into 2 small groups. So we'll have about 6 riders in the morning and in the evening. 12 people is about the max I like to work with. I can remember everybody's name and horse and backstory and all that. 20 people buzzing around like a stirred up hornet's nest, I can't handle that. I don't know how anybody can. I can't do a good job for you with too many people. So about 12 people, 2 small groups is how we do it. And then we'll finish up the clinic with 1 or 2 days of private lessons. So you may ride with me for 2 or 3 days, and then we're going to do an hour slot, just you, just your horse, and just me. And that has been working out really well. Everybody gets enough attention, and I talk a lot. I'm going to throw a lot of information at you. It can be like drinking from a fire hose. You probably cannot take 8 hours of that. You'll walk away brain numb, feeling like you just took the SATs or something. So the breaking it up works very, very well. It's too big of a topic for me to really breach in what's going to be too long of a video here. Hopefully you're getting a feel for what the clinics are like and what my personality is like and how I go about things. But you're not going to understand the depth of my knowledge in this short video. So one thing I would advise you to check out is our podcast, Adult Onset Horsemanship. It's a long form podcast. We've had lots of great conversations with interesting guests and from a variety of backgrounds. So let's say you're a dressage rider. I've probably had a half a dozen classical dressage trainers come on, and we've had chats. And so gaited horse people, we've had a few gaited horse people, and so forth. So if you're not real sure who I am, you don't really know whether I know what I'm talking about or not, which is fair, go listen to the podcast, and I think you'll get a pretty good idea of whether I do know what I'm talking about or not, or whether I'm the flavor of ice cream for you. Again, that podcast is called Adult Onset Horsemanship. It's in the top 5% of all podcasts. It is in the top 250 podcasts in the world in the education space. I think if you start checking it out, it's going to become your new favorite horse podcast. Ultimately, all clinic formats are up to the host. So different hosts, I ask them to kind of poll the group of people that you're expecting to come to this clinic and ask them what they would like to work on. So not every clinic is the same. I don't have like this formula that we're gonna all go through the same things. We kind of have some general things we usually work on, but it really is kind of tailored to the group and then whatever the host picks. So I mean, we may have a colt starting clinic, a cattle working clinic, an advanced horsemanship, a basic horsemanship. I do try to make sure that every clinic we're staying flexible. So I have some exercises that will run everybody through when we begin, and that's sort of an evaluation. I'm going to see where you're at with your horse. That won't take me very long. I do that because I have had clinics where there was a little clinic where we were going to work on flying changes. That was the whole point of the clinic. Well, when we started off, I think we had 8 people in that. 6 of them very obviously did not know their leads. I can't teach you how to train a horse to do flying lead changes if you don't know your leads in the beginning. You lack the basic skills for training the horse to do that. And so that happens sometimes. And so I'm always looking at the group I have and what their actual needs and skills and abilities and the horse that they're on today, what that is, and how we need to adjust or proceed with the actual group of people and horses in front of me today. What kind of things do we work on at the clinic? That really depends. One thing I'll say is that we do often work on things that would be seemingly simple until I really ask you how to do them. I love the saying that kind of beginning basic horsemanship people always want to work on the intermediate stuff. And then the intermediate groups, they always want to jump up and work on the advanced stuff. And without fail, when I work with the advanced people, the people that really do have some serious skills, we always wind up working on the basic stuff. So don't undervalue all of the skill required in walking your horse forward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps. Because mastering the basics is what the advanced stuff is really all about. One thing that I really believe sets our clinics apart and adds a tremendous amount of value to the experience. Kind of mentioned I'm a little bit of a nerd. Every nerd loves their notes. So I keep my phone on me when I do clinics. I have a little voice recorder that I use, and I keep track of what we've gone over in the different sessions and so forth throughout. And when a clinic wraps up, I make sure I get everybody's emails. We even do this for the auditors. I compile notes on what we went over, and then I email those out to everybody. And just to give you an idea of the breadth and detail of those notes, the last clinic that we did, the notes were about 35 pages in a Word document typed up and sent out to everybody. In my mind, there's only so much you're going to retain from a clinic. I'm going to talk a lot. There's going to be a bunch of stuff worked on, and you're going to maybe remember 1 or 2% of that when you go home a couple weeks later. And so the notes really helps to refresh all that in your head. I also look at it as homework. So I will explain what we talked about in the clinic, but also how to advance it, what the pitfalls are, what the practical application is, and this is kind of where you're heading. So it's really like 6 months to a year worth of homework for you to go home and keep aiming up and heading for those goals and knowing kind of what direction to go and how to get there. It's really something we put a lot of effort into, and I think it does add a tremendous amount of value to the clinic. So the English Western thing. I have a lot of friends that are in the English world. Believe it or not, my very first paid riding job was an English riding job on race horses. There is not as much difference between really good English and really good Western as a lot of people think. So if you are in the English world, please don't make the mistake of thinking there's nothing you can learn from me. I can probably bring a great deal of horsemanship to whatever it is that you're doing. That being said, I am more of a generalist. We are working on horsemanship related things. I am not a specialist in every specific discipline and getting you from level 3 dressage to level 4 dressage or something like that. Some people wonder, do you need like some big fancy $20, $30, $100,000 show horse before you come to one of my clinics? No. I'm cool with working with just about anything. I am, however, pretty insistent that we're high performance. This is my high performance donkey, Aston Martin. Who's my little buddy? You my little buddy. Will I ride your horse? Maybe. Depends. I don't know. If I need to demonstrate something and I flew to this clinic, then I may need to borrow one of the horses in the clinic and hop on for a minute and demonstrate the thing and then give it back to the owner. If you ask me to ride your horse, 9 times out of the 10, I will be happy to get on there and help you across something or whatever the deal is. Sometimes people just want to see what can I get their horse to do and does he really know this and so forth, and I'm fine with that. The caveat is if you are working on something and you're just that close to being successful, I'm not going to take over and rob you of that. I want you to have that experience. But sometimes you're going to be 6 hours working on this thing and I can fix it for you in 5 minutes. And so let's do that, you know. So that's how I approach it. I am really good at helping people take a horse that has a skill set but is maybe a little problemed or a little tight. A lot of horses out there with some tension, and working that tension out of the horse so that they're moving more freely, more comfortably, and more relaxed for the rider, and ultimately performing at a higher level because of those things. Some of the general things that we do work out at every clinic, the cue to relax is something we always start with, because if you understand that mechanism and how it works, you kind of get it for free during all the times that I am talking and everybody's kind of waiting, you're standing around or whatever. You can actually be making that time productive. So the cue to relax is something that we always go over. The Hokey Pokey is another thing that we always do. That's the walks forward 7 steps and stop on the 7th step. That's kind of the inroad to it. But ultimately that game is about feeling and controlling the horse's feet. There is no path to more advanced skills in the horse world that I'm aware of that you can get to without going through really feeling the horse's feet and knowing where they are. We're going to work on timing, we're going to work on skills with your hands and things like that, but if you don't feel the feet, your timing can only get so good. If you're one of those people, don't feel bad about it. You're not anywhere near alone, but we're going to work on that, because you need to know when the right front foot is about to leave the ground so you can have good timing and direct that foot over here to make a turn or something like that. So we will work in that just about every clinic. Rate is another one of those pretty big things people have a lot of trouble with historically. So in most clinics we will work on rate. Let me see how fast you can trot, and in a lot of cases the fastest you can get your horse to trot is like 50% of what he can actually do. Well, you have a problem there. You can't stretch that horse out. You can't push him, and they have to be where you can push them, or you're kind of handcuffed. Your riding is going to be very limited. So those are things that we work on. We often get into the body parts, so moving shoulders specifically, and again, a specific foot at a time, and then hind quarter things. If the group is hindquarters are getting into at least intermediate toward advanced horsemanship, that's really where we talk more about that stuff. But the lateral movements and those kinds of things, riders, hands, and timing, that's a perennial topic. Timing is something that everybody can still stand to work on, no matter your discipline or your level of skill. Your timing could be better. And then hands with the bit stuff and all, that's a really big part of what I work on. Also reading the horse accurately and in real time. Let's all look at this horse over here. You see what he just did? What do y'all think that means? No, it really means this. And we're gonna watch that play out in real time as we adjust things and all. So every clinic we're working on reading the horse and our timing and those sorts of things. And then the horse gets to be the one that kind of teaches you how you ride them, because you can read them accurately and you'll know where to go and how to adjust, how hard to push. That's another thing that people often have as a roadblock is they don't know how hard they can push this horse or should push this horse. And a lot of you just need to push a little harder and kind of get them over the crest of a hill, and then there's the valley on the other side. You'll have a whole lot more things open up to you that you can play with, but you're kind of stuck because you don't really know how hard to push or how hard you can push safely. So that's a really common thing that we work on with people in clinics. We also talk about some of the biomechanics, even at lower levels, like the horse's eye and how it works. That really means a whole lot to your horse. So like there are certain postures behind the vertical and things like that that truly affect their vision in a way that's not going to be beneficial to you or your horse. We do, depending again on the group, sometimes we'll play some games that deal with like buddy sour horses and things like that. We'll definitely discuss some strategies as to how not to let those things become problems in the first place. So I might handle unsaddling my horse here and this way rather than doing this, which will develop into a problem later, and just kind of general horsemanship things like that a lot. We do trail clinics as well, where we're riding outside the arena. That can be in conjunction with or the main focus of other clinics. So obviously if we have that kind of thing or some obstacles, then we can get into all of those sorts of things, which can be very, very helpful to a lot of horses. May or may not be relevant to you, but again, that would be one of the formats that we would possibly get into. Cattle working kind of the same way. And we may work on some things like stopping, the $1 million exercise that has to do with your hands, and it's one of those things that is simple but not easy, but if you can kind of master it, like it's a superpower. That by itself will dissolve 90% of the problems that you have with your horse if you just kind of work at it faithfully. We're going to deal with reality, okay? This is something that it's a real pet peeve of mine. There's a whole lot of unicorn dreams being sold out there right now, and you can't ride a fantasy horse, okay? That's going to get you hurt. You got to ride the horse you actually have, and you got to deal with the reality of the horse you actually have, and the horse you have this morning, not the horse you had last week, not the horse you hope to have, not the horse you meant to buy, the horse you actually have right now in front of you. So we're going to work on your timing and feeling the feet and reading the horse in real time and reality and practical skills. So some of the things like licking and chewing on a horse, that's pretty well known now. People talk about the dopamine and the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems in the horse. You may have heard of like fidget, freeze, fight or flight, or lick and chew, rest and digest, and that kind of stuff. Well, that applies to you too. So the jokes and all of the Hawaiian shirt and all of that not being formal, that's actually quite important, and it's by design. If you're not having fun, if you get defensive, you get your back up, if you feel less confident or ashamed or any kind of those negative emotions, or very much emotion of any kind, if that starts creeping in while you're handling your horse, it's not going to be a good thing. That's going to just put a wall down and kind of shut you down. And so the jokes and the playing around and the silliness, that's actually quite important. It keeps you in the correct frame of mind so that you can handle your horse and that you can actually learn and retain the information that we're talking about. Because if I say something that makes you feel defensive and that wall comes down, well, you don't hear anything else I have to say. You have to have a good time at the clinic, or I did a bad job. It's really kind of that simple. I can't teach you if you're miserable or defensive or ashamed or any of those sorts of things. And so that's on me. That's what I'm managing at a clinic. It's not just the horses, it's the people too. So what are our clinics like? It might be easier to start talking about what they aren't like, because this is kind of what I hear from other people of experience they've had. So first of all, it's not everybody sits around in hushed, silent reverence while I warm up my horse. No one's allowed to talk. It's not that. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. It's not a guru following kind of deal. I put my pants on just like everybody else. I float down from a pedestal in the morning while my valet holds them open, not making eye contact with me. That's very important. There's no cult to sign up for. You're going to write a check for the clinic. You don't have to put blood on a document or anything. We don't do a 3-hour lock you in a room sales pitch and you have to buy my special halter and all of this kind of stuff before the clinic starts. There's none of that. It is also not a fashion show for me. It's not a cosplaying thing. I am likely going to show up and give a clinic wearing a Hawaiian shirt. I don't like formality. I want things to be informal. My original business plan was trying to be Jimmy Buffett's son-in-law. That didn't work out. Now I'm stuck doing this horse thing. We're going to keep it light and relaxed, and everybody can actually learn and not feel like they have to be in a straitjacket. This is not a pilgrimage so that you can say that you rode with or whatever. I want you to come with your horse and learn and leave better and more confident with your horse. That's what this deal is about. If you come to one of my clinics and you leave ashamed, your confidence shattered, your self-esteem in the toilet, you were crying during the dang thing, you felt like you were going to throw up every time I talked to you, I failed you, okay? That's not what my clinics are like at all, and I hear some pretty terrible stories of people having experiences like that. I am going to be very realistic and practical about the things that we talked about. I don't care about cool looking fancy stuff that's gimmicky and doesn't actually mean anything. It's like glitter, just fluff. I don't do fluff. I don't do woo-woo stuff. I love horses, but if you're into crystals and souls and all of that kind of stuff, like I'm probably not for you, to be quite honest. In fact, if you start crying or you get a little too emotional, I have an entire folder in my phone called Amygdala Hijack of little things to throw at you to snap you out of it, or I'll give you a math problem and let's see if you can still cry when you're trying to figure out what 68 minus 19 is. And so I'm going to bring you right out of that. If you want to have a crying kumbaya session again, I'm probably not for you.
So I'm not going to yell at you, I'm not going to insult you, I'm not going to insinuate that you're stupid. Like, none of that kind of stuff is going to happen. And I don't think you should ride with anybody that makes you feel that way. The only people that I yell at are my kids.
I don't do it for the money, I do it for the love of the game.
So there are going to be some drills. I mean, we may do serpentines and circles and all sorts of other things that you've done before. But I will definitely focus on, like, if you have a horse that's a little stuck, he's not freed up in his lumbar, he's not moving his hip to the right or something like that, I'll help you identify that, and then we'll show you these few things that we worked on, these 3 drills. This is going to help free him up, and you do that, and you do that, and now he's moving a little better. Now we put him back where you were having the trouble, and voila, the problem is solved. That's what training a horse is, and we want to be realistic about it. There are many instances where all you need to do is slow down and back up to a point where he understood, and you simplify it, and then you progress again. People tend to have a tendency of taking some of this stuff way too personally, and so I want to explain to you, as a person that's made way more mistakes than you're ever going to make, you don't take those things personally. The mistakes, the failures, the little hiccups, you got to back up 3 steps and then go, like, those things are a normal part of the process. They're entirely predictable. It doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. It doesn't mean that you need to change anything. You kind of have to just keep that 30,000 foot view mentality and look down on it and rise above it. Don't take it personally. Back up, do what you need to do, and advance again, and that's perfectly normal. And I think that needs to be explained to people. In my experience, a lot of people don't understand that. They think progress is like this linear upward slope, and it's not. It's like this. It has problems in it. It's not just a straight and easy curve. It has failures and backups and problems and all of those things built into it as well. That is normal.
Male horses don't have nipples. I use this as one of those things I throw out to some audiences, especially professionals, when I'm talking to them, because everybody thinks if you're talking about bits, you're going to bore them to tears and they shut off. But it's true. And In fact, horses are one of only 3 mammalian males that don't have an udder or nipples, in essence, and that is horses, rats, and mice. So donkeys actually have nipples. And so you have picked up feet and been underneath a horse a whole bunch of times, and I know that you probably didn't know that horses don't have nipples. So that's the kind of stuff that I bring to a clinic. I do know some things you haven't really thought about and that are going to be like, that's something I'm really good at, is connecting some dots for you that you go, oh, that's obvious. How did I not think of that before? And it's practical and realistic to you. But I promise you, you didn't know they had nipples. They don't have nipples. There's a lot of other things you don't know, even if you think that you do. So come to a clinic and find out. And like, honestly, can you picture some of these other clinicians saying the word nipple on camera and putting it out there to the world? No. Don't you want to ride with a guy that would say the word nipple? Like, don't you? Doesn't that seem fun?